And good evening to the SFP News Desk on this fine Sunday evening here at Studio A, Dave in the AM, aka the Cornbread Man, as we stream live from beside the Southern Fried River as it gently flows through the state of Georgia and empties in as it passed Studio B, deep in the heart of Georgia, and then eventually empties into the state of Florida in parts unknown. We know not where. We just know that it's there. We hope you've had a great Sunday. I did a lot of driving today. I did a lot of worship today. Good day at church, and I hope that you as well were able to go to church. I hope that your church is like ours. I'm sure that it did. If you went, praise and is praying for the country and praying for the administration. Those are important things, I think. And to pray for our leaders, we're instructed to do that, to pray for those for people in authority over us and people who lead. And we certainly need that. We're still unpacking, as they say, what does it mean for the bombing that occurred and what will happen after. There's a lot of things we don't know. I have not stayed glued to the news, but I've been keeping up some. I will dig in deeper. After all, I was driving a lot today, caught up what I could late last night as we were following the story, and then early this morning before we went to church. But there's a lot of news out there, and I don't know the end result of all of that. So I got folks visiting the studio, so I didn't know who was coming in the door. So y'all come on in. You're fine. You're not on screen. So if you hear a dog barking, we have guests. So you're welcome to come on screen. It's okay. But the camera is right here. So if you're over here, you're okay. But I have not kept up with the news. We'll be keeping up with the news a little bit more. But we already know there's threats being made back to the country, to Americans around the world, and to our military personnel and our allies. 180 missiles fired at Israel since the bombing. There is a lot to we question out of it, and there is oldest boy, middle granddaughter, jumping in the screen. So it's not often I have visitors this late at night, but sometimes. So if you can tell the resemblance, I have to claim him, because he looks like me, unfortunately. How are you doing today, son?
Good.
He's very shy. I'm surprised he got on camera. He must be feeling pretty spiffy tonight to be getting on camera. I've been trying to get him on the show more and more. So those of you that know Jeremy, maybe coworkers, this is streaming out to Facebook. So there are those that could be watching that know you. Or you may be making new fans. You may have the Jeremy Posse, the fan club that pops up out of this. So I don't know. So, but yeah, the bombing occurred. We don't know the end result of it. There's still intel that needs to happen off of it. Heard conflicting reports on how much damage has occurred. We don't know the full result of that, but we will be finding out. And they're threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. And whether they can actually do that or not, they're going to have to fight with a lot of navies, including the United States Navy and different forces. But this is where we're at. Now Russia is saying they would like to get into the mix and they can supply nukes to Iran. So probably just a lot of chatter. You gotta save face. You gotta look tough in that part of the world. They're not going quietly into the night. The Houthis are starting to show some of their their ideas of showing back up. Remember, we bombed the heck out of them, the Houthis. They throwed up the white flag, supposedly. Then they fired one final volley towards Israel, and we've not heard from them. But apparently Iran's lost so much, the Houthis are like the next in line to cause us some problems. I don't think that'll be much of that, but I do think terrorism will tick up around the world. And I would encourage Americans, wherever they are, to be on guard. They'll be a target, even more so than you already are as you travel around the world. So we will see what happens with that. There is a lot of news going on about the strike and what that means. And as we see vice presidents now speaking out about some things when they say, it was a catastrophic mistake to attack U.S. troops. If they're going to attack, it's going to cause someone to get hit again. And so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that as the attacks tick up around the world. But I would be careful as embassy personnel, general contractors in other countries. Even there could be those rogue hits that go on, and I think they're fully aware of that. It's not that that's not any kind of news, but then we see those people that don't take precautions, and they we never know where danger is going to come from, and you got to live your life. But at the same time, you have to know that there's things that can happen, and you have to be careful with that. So, where does it lead to? Listening Saturday night, there were people all over the place on their opinions of this. Some are completely ecstatic. Some are not happy at all, and there are different reasons for that, and as many reasons as there are people. I think that may be a stretch a little bit, but there are a lot of people upset about the strike because the strike occurred, in kind of odd ways. This whole thing has escalated very quickly. I don't want a nuclear Iran any more than anybody else. I don't like that they have been a state sponsor of terrorism around the world and continue to do so. The mullahs, the Iranian people are wonderful people for the most part. You can always have bad in any country, but they are good people who want to live their lives. However, the situation changed very rapidly. We went from a president being at the G7 who then quickly fled the scene and came back home to meet with and what he called the war room, which is called the situation room normally. And intel that he was given caused him to immediately put American forces on the move. This is a complex operation. They said they gave them 2-week window. First it was unconditional surrender. We could take you out if we want to, but we won't, but we can. There's a lot of very strong talk. And then the complex operation, some deception going on. And then in 2 days, massive amount of these really big bombs, these bunker busters, all at Fordow, and then the 30 Tomahawks into the other sites. Very complex operation, very things could have went wrong, and it did. But my question is, and I don't know that we'll ever get an answer. My question is what escalated so quickly? It's like we've been tracking this thing and tracking for years now, where we were months away, a year away, 3 months away, to where we had some enriched uranium, but nowhere near weapons grade. Russians said they would help them. Then we hear they had enough to make a bomb, or maybe 4 bombs, or maybe 10 bombs. It was all over the place. The intel has completely changed. Of course, these are coming from sources. And at no point did anybody ever say they had the bomb. But they said we don't want them to because they have swore to hit their enemies with that. And they didn't want to allow inspections of the IAEA inspectors who were coming in at least and seeing some things, much like decades ago, which really brings our memories back to what it was so many years ago, as these same, not the same people, but these same kind of inspections were going on in Iraq, and they got stopped. It's very strange. Now you're going to have those people who claim, and now it's looking like that they're pushing for regime change. J.D. Vance, as I'd mentioned, has said it was be a catastrophic mistake to hit American forces. Says that they're doing all they can to keep their people safe, and they are preparing if the Iranians retaliate. He told NBC's Meet the Press this morning, those morning Sunday shows, The vice president goes on to say it would be the stupidest thing in the world for them to retaliate. He added that the Operation Midnight Hammer strikes met the objective of preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. This is a delicate moment, he says. I don't want to pretend that it's not, but I think the Iranians, if they're smart, you'll look in the mirror and say, maybe you're not so good at this war thing, and let's drop the nuclear weapons program and start to make smart decisions. That's not going to happen. It would be nice. That's not going to happen. We're talking about fanatical people. You don't care if they themselves even die, it would seem. He said, he went on to say it'd be, quote, suicidal, end quote, for Iran if it disrupts shipping of the Strait of Hormuz. Their entire economy runs through the Strait of Hormuz. If they want to destroy their own economy and cause disruption to the world, I think that would be their decision. But why would they do that? I don't think it makes any sense. Well, when have the Iranians ever made sense? The warnings came after a commentator on Iran's IRIB state broadcasting said that all U.S. citizens and soldiers in the region became a legitimate threat following the strikes. Well, certainly. It's not a surprise. The TV station also showed a map of American bases in the region with a broadcaster warning President Donald Trump that, quote, you started it and we'll finish it, end quote. Vance, meanwhile, said that the United States set back Iran's nuclear weapons program and that Trump remains committed to pursuing a diplomatic solution. Saying, quote, we do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, he told the show host, Kristen Welker. We want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here. He also insisted the United States is not at war with Iran, but with its nuclear weapons program. He would not confirm if the country's nuclear sites were completely destroyed. News out of Iran is that they're not. But again, is that legitimate news? The president had said Saturday night they were completely and totally obliterated. An Iranian parliament member said Sunday the Fordow facility was not seriously damaged, but that it's not independently confirmed. The vice president told Welker that he would not discuss sensitive intelligence about blah, blah, blah. We've seen a lot, and I feel confident that we've substantially delayed their development of a nuclear weapon, and that was the goal of this attack. But Vance later added the United States destroyed the Iranian nuclear program and set it back substantially. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and both of these were speaking this morning from this press conference from the Pentagon, also said that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been, as he said, obliterated. Vance said Sunday the United States has got some indirect messages from the Iranians after the strikes. He also blamed the Iranians for not following Trump's lead and giving peace a chance. If they are serious about it, I guarantee you the president of the United States is too. Well, they gave them 2 weeks, and the strike hit in 2 days. I don't really think they were expecting a response and didn't get that response, and then struck. My sense is that most Americans support the strike. Limited, nobody was hurt. Do not want us in a war. Others are completely upset. Feel like the president has overstepped powers that he has. I disagree. I believe he had the right to do it. But there were aspects of this attack that, and the whole thing that I have questions about. Probably never get those questions answered. But there were oddities about it. And was they really that close? That's my question. Again, Iranians, the mullahs, the ayatollahs have, for 40, nearly 40 years have committed gross atrocities upon many, many people. So they've shown that they're willing to harm people and hurt people and threaten people and kill people, including attempts on the president's life. So, they get what they get. But neither here nor there. But the point I have is a deeper question. Was this, as some people believe, a way to put pressure on Iran to actually absolutely change the regime? That this was an Israeli Mossad operation. Now, some people get mad at that. I'm not being anti-Semitic. If you know me, you know anything about me. You know that I love Israel. You know that I love the Jewish people, like I love all people. And my ministry and has been to take the gospel to Jewish people. This is not I'm not anti-Semitic in one iota. You can, and there's been a problem, and some people get frustrated with it. That sometimes when you question certain things that it involves Israel, that somehow you're automatically being anti-Semitic. That's hogwash. We can question things. There are things that we may not like. We see from any government or any, including our own, and that's the freedom we have. So that's not being anti-Semitic. That's not saying that the Jews live under a threat every day, because they do, for 22 nations around them that would love to see them destroyed. However, we have a president who ran on getting us out of war, not into war. Now they're quick to say we're not in war. But this thing's heating up, and it's frustrating people because they said that's not what we want. Others say this is America First agenda, absolutely showing strength through peace, or peace through strength, however you want to say it. Because the Iranians have a different story. Well, of course they would. Now the president, in an article in Newsmax, says he is open to regime change in Iran, and he has sent some conflicting messaging. Now it may have been on purpose. It may have been just throwing some things out. He tends to do that sometimes. But today he did send out some messages to Iran that were a little bit conflicting. The U.S. officials initially indicated a willingness to resume negotiations after the attack on 3 of their nuclear sites. But also, President Trump was also talking about possible regime change. He said, quote, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to, in capital letters, make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be regime change?" Trump posted on Truth, MAGA, however you want to say that, make Iran great again. So, hey, Anthony, how you doing, buddy? To be honest, these regime changes that the United States does comes from a good place, but they don't seem to stabilize. And that's fair enough. That's a fair assessment. And that's the concern, that we've not had a great success for the most part in regime change. And sometimes better to deal with the devil you know than the devil you get. I mean, that's, in this case, I don't know how you could get much worse, but who's to say? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on the news show this morning, this mission was not and has not been about regime change. So they seem to have different stories going on. And by the way, the administration has not been completely together on this. There have been voices that the president has come out and corrected people within his administration. Seems like some people have spoken out of turn just a little bit. They maybe need to get their ducks in a row. The Trump administration has made a series of intimidating, according to Newsmax, intimidating statements, even as it has simultaneously called to restart negotiations, making it hard to get a complete read on whether the president is simply taunting an adversary or using inflammatory words that could further widen the war between Israel and Iran. Up until the president's post on Sunday afternoon, the coordinated messaging by Trump's vice president, Pentagon chief, top military advisor, and Secretary of State suggested a confidence that any fallout would be manageable and that Iran's lack of military capabilities would ultimately force it back to the bargaining table. Hegseth said that America, quote, does not seek war, end quote, with Iran, while Vice President J.D. Vance said the strikes have given Tehran the possibility of returning to negotiate with Washington. He goes on to say the unfolding situation is not entirely under Washington's control, as Tehran has a series of levers to respond to the bombings that could intensify the conflict in the Middle East with the possible global repercussions, and that would be the fear here. Iran can block oil being shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, attack U.S. bases in the region, engage in cyber attacks. That's absolutely already today been talked about, that's absolutely been going on and will continue. Or double down on a nuclear program that might even seem more like of a necessity after the U.S. strike. All that raises the question of whether the strikes will open up more brutal fighting or revive negotiations out of an abundance of caution. Inside the U.S., the attack quickly spilled over into domestic politics, with Trump choosing to spend part of his Sunday going after his critics in Congress. Trump, who addressed the nation from the White House on Saturday night, was a very short address. I did watch that. Got to the point, no video, and obviously it was early. He returned to social media on Sunday to lambast Representative, and Massey's been taking heat, yes, Representative Thomas Massey, Republican Kentucky, who objected to the president taking military action without specific congressional approval. We had a spectacular military success yesterday, taking the bomb right out of their hands, and they would use it if they could, Trump said as part of his post on Truth Social. After their joint Pentagon briefing, Hegseth and Air Force General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said Operation Midnight Hammer involved decoys and deception and met with no Iranian resistance. He indicated, this is being Kane, that the goal of the operation, destroying nuclear sites at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, had been achieved. Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all three sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction, Kane said. So we will see. Again, this is a fluid operation, absolutely. Anthony says, I'm going to use the perfect example. Remember Manuel Noriega. We deposed them thinking it would help Nicaragua, but it seemed to make the country more unstable after we deposed him. Truth. I understand why he doesn't, but talking like he does when he's trying to negotiate contracts for businesses doesn't work when you're trying to do political negotiations. To be fair, and I like the president's moxie, and I do think they fear him to a degree. With this fear, it doesn't mean they won't keep doing things, but it does cause them to think a little more. They do respect power. And in that, it definitely hits them. They don't respect deals. You can forget deals. They don't believe in them anyway. So you have to show the strength, and I get that. So this was all part of that. But I would say to that point that you're making, that the president at times has made some really strong guarantees that he couldn't follow up on. And it's not that he didn't want to, and it's not that he didn't try. It's just that he found out it's not always just because you say it that it's going to happen. These, I'm not saying that there aren't some that think that. There are maybe some that think that, but most of those are inside the country. But because of this strike, it will make them pause. That's true. That maybe they do think that. And there's a lot of people that think he is. That would be unwise to do that. With the full power of the American military behind him, he can do that. However, where I think he's made the mistake is he's talked really tough outwardly in these posts and press conferences. There's one thing about Europe, and there's one thing about the Middle East. If you call honor into question, if you make them look bad, they have to show a response of some kind, or they're done, because the people then will just turn on them, because they would see that as being weak. So a lot of these leaders understand this mentality behind a lot of the leaders is that, there are things that are said behind closed doors. You can say things in code, but sometimes he's made guarantees and it's made them very upset, and they want to look tough. They do. They want to look tough. They're the bully in the region, at least they think they are, and maybe they are, but they want to look tough to their people. So it's even if it's they hit something and say, "See, we got them." For Saddam Hussein, I've told you this before. After the first war, he told his negotiator, he said, "I don't care what you agree to." He said, "But you will wear my pistols on each hip, 2 Pearl Handler pistols. The people will recognize the pistols. They'll know they're mine. And that will be a signal to them that I'm still in control here." And that's facts. He went out in the desert, met with Schwarzkopf and everybody, and they wore the pistols, and Saddam was still lived another day. Unfortunately, the second round he did not. But people knew that because they weren't going to speak out too much because they were worried about the knock at the door that everybody feared in Iraq, and I'm sure in most of those countries over there. So I'm going to use the perfect person list. He honestly believes that Putin is his friend. I think that Putin is manipulating Trump to get what he wants because before he became president, he wasn't. Sure, he was KGB. No, they're not friends. But I wouldn't sell Trump short on that. He's pretty wise. He loves to learn quickly, and he's pretty wise to read people. He's street smart. I mean, he you don't build an empire and overcome some of the things he's come over without having a lot of uh, ability to stay away from the landmines and survive. He's a survivor. He is that. But the street bullying didn't work in these cases. It certainly worked for Zelensky, but Trump had the power hand. It doesn't work with Putin because Putin is not. He knows that they can't really touch him. He comes from a position of already knowing that the United States is not going to wage war with Russia. He also probably figures we're never going to fully arm, at least from our end. We're not going to fully arm Ukraine. We're not going to be flying sorties over Russian territory with our bombers, or let the Ukrainians do it either. So he already knows that. So he already has a belief. So he comes from a fairly position of strength. But however, he also knows if he overplays his hand, it could cause him a lot of harm, not only with the United States but across the world. So, he has a tremendous card to play. Does the Russian leader, but so does America, and so it's a tit for tat kind of thing. Uh, they're going to have to come to some sort of agreement, and I right now he's not in any hurry to make an agreement. I thought he might be at one point. He's played his hand. We didn't call it, and he knew that, and he tested it, and he was right, and now he's just not in any hurry. So I think that would be where he's at. I feel that him and Pete Hegseth are going about this the wrong way. They think they can go into this all hot-headed, and not what they're doing. He's not experienced this type of thing. But that being street smart with a guy like Putin doesn't seem to be working with Trump because of the experience Putin has had, because Putin can score his features and allow him to read what he wants to read. Well, again, it's all about the imaging of it. It's all about who looks at a certain point. It's body language. It's like when they meet, it's who gets their hand on top for the handshake. This is all, how does he look to the Russian people? How does Trump look to the Americans? It's a lot of there's a lot of chess match here, and we're playing with really big toys. So, but you have to give the president credit. He didn't push it. He said some strong things. It didn't work, and he said, "I guess they don't want peace right now, so war's going to continue." He didn't like one up it. He didn't paint himself in a corner and say, "If you do this, I'll do that." That would be a mistake, unless we're actually at that point where it's going to happen pretty much anyway. And that would be truly World War III or 4 or 5. He didn't play that. He didn't paint a red line and say, if you're not have a deal by Tuesday, we're done, and we're moving the DEFCON level, and it'll be prepare. We're declaring war, or he go to Congress. He didn't say that. He said some strong language, but he didn't really come at that. Then he goes on to say, to be honest, I have a bad feeling he might cave to Putin and give him what he wants when it comes to the unconditional surrender of Ukraine. Am I panicking for no reason and being too critical of him? Maybe a little. I think, like I said, the president is really well at landing on his feet here. And although it seemed early that Putin was just wanting the Donbass and this land bridge all the way from the Kursk region all the way down to Crimea, He's certainly wanting more now. And with the screen that is happening of everything that's happening in Iran, Ukraine and Russia war has kind of been moved to the background, and they just keep going on. So there's not as much pressure there to stop. So he may think, I didn't think he was, but he may think now, and I will tell you when you'll know this will happen. If he is going to try to take the whole country, he will take Kyiv. If he gets his forces in range and starts this same Russian style, and that's just battering building after building and collapsing everything to just concrete and dust, he's absolutely going to try to take the whole country. If he stops short, if he sort of draws a line and doesn't move that far, he's in that Sumy region. If he takes that, he takes all of that east of there, and doesn't leave. I think now he wants to make a buffer where they can't come across into Russian territory without going through his troops. I think that's what he's doing, but it could be wrong because you have Belarus and you have Russian territory. I think he's trying to bring that all the way up because the Ukrainians went into Russia and they were trying to pull away forces away from the front lines where they were weak. It happened. It worked to a degree, but not very well. And the Ukrainians have been backing up ever since. It seems like to me, he's coming all the way up the country on the eastern side, and he wants to protect that now and make that Russian territory. But if he continues on the march to Kyiv, then the Europe's going to have to decide what they're going to do, and the United States and whoever else, because I believe that would mean he has full intentions of taking the whole country. And then that would be worrisome because whereas I didn't think at first he might want to do that, would he make a move on a NATO member? Those are all questions that will have to be answered down the road. You want to say, surely he wouldn't do that, but who's to say? Who's to say? It actually was shocking to hear that he would say out loud, we can give the Iranians nuclear weapons. That's crazy talk right there. Now, again, he likes to talk tough, but he's not stupid. He knows the power in that. And I don't know if he's trying to provoke Israel into something more than what they're doing. Maybe he's trying to force them to show their hand on nukes or whatever. I don't know. But he is surely, that kind of language is the kind of language that wars can start off of. If anything legitimate started coming out of that, if they started trying to transfer some sort of nuclear warhead to Iran, we're at war. That would definitely be it would be on. I think he's just talking. But because he has not wanted to make any kind of agreements, and he's resisted it, and he's now more empowered and emboldened than he ever has been, I think that we have to take it into consideration. Absolutely. I'm not one of these that, I don't, some of these people, they talk about Putin, it's almost like they worship him. Like, oh, he's like he's great or whatever. No, he's a butcher. He's a killer. I could care less about the guy. But he's very definitive about what he wants. The problem is nobody really knows exactly what he wants. And anybody that says they do, they're lying because nobody has an answer. If they did, it's never been any offer they've made him has been rejected. So they don't know what he wants. Whatever he's told his negotiators, whatever he said face to face with people, phone calls with the president didn't come out and immediately say, we have some sort of a working agreement and we were now going to get with the Ukrainians and our other NATO members and, we're going to negotiate this further. I think we've got a blueprint for peace or a ceasefire, a cessation of activities. And we don't see that. We've never heard that. The closest we got was once the president said, I think we got a deal. I think we can get it. We got a ways to go. It's a couple of weeks, maybe we'll know more. Then that was on the eve of Ukraine's, big hit. It wasn't long before that. Then they were supposed to meet again that very next day, and then he did do the hit, and then that just was over, just done. Not going to happen. On another note, and I'm going to do it in another show, not in this one. the American military, all the way up to the president, who has signed some orders about this, they are very concerned at American military bases around the world, and including the United States, of the exactly what the Ukrainians did to hit Russia, and that's your drone swarm, and how they carried out that operation has American military leaders greatly concerned. We're going to talk about that this week. It's going to be a subject that I want to explore, because there's certain rules in place in America that don't exist for us outside the United States concerning the military. And we can't just do some of the things that people think we can do. And it is absolutely a threat to planes. Overseas, they've already hit some of the big bombers and stuff on some of the bases over there, because they realize there's a target there and they can't guarantee the safety of the planes. But even here in America, there is a fear, and the president, you haven't heard a lot about it, but there's been some talk, and there's been some movement, some action, some money spent to try to get some protections there to go against this drone swarm, where they just, all of a sudden you've got a whole, swarm of drones that are, bombs that can hit our planes on the tarmacs, which is normally where planes sit. They don't all have hangars. So we're going to talk about that and what some of the things that the president is looking at and the American military is looking at. So I think it's interesting. Let's see here. Let me catch up with you, brother, because I don't want to miss your comments. Okay, here. I like what Trump did. He forced the countries in the EU and NATO to wrap up their military production and increase their. Yes, absolutely, and they should, because we just keep going deeper in debt to. We keep going deeper in debt to supply these people, and he's always been good about that. And now the British have saying they're going to, by 2035, they want to have the biggest military in all of Europe, the most advanced, the biggest military. So it sounds like to me they're ready to go to war. But anyway, for defensive purposes, they say. Poland has a big military. There's some ones over there. This is why I don't understand why people act like Ukraine was the aggressor of that region that they got from Russia was originally theirs. Russia took it away from them. Well, there's some different reasons why. And actually, more so, and I know people are angry at Ukraine, which they have problems in their leadership. They have problems, some fraud, some things, but some of our people, what did they play in that? And again, another regime change that didn't work out for us, did it? That's a regime change. We helped to facilitate that, and it didn't work out for us. So, again, I don't like this idea of painting, either of them in any great light, Russia or Ukraine. I think there's problems with both of them, but yes, Russia did make the aggressive move and come in. And for what reason? What threat? But here's the thing: did they have any more provocation to come in than we did for what we just did? That's a deep question. Did we have the right to do what we did as far as nation states when there actually wasn't anything there that was tangible yet? Some people say, yes, take it out early. That was exactly what Putin would say about Ukraine, as he hit them early because he was afraid they were going to come across on him, move NATO right up to his borders. And he, that was something he couldn't risk. That same argument can be made. That's pretty interesting. That's what scares me, is that he said that a nuclear weapon, that he would allow them to have nuclear weapons, but that makes this region unstable. Pakistan and India already having nukes. True, they're both nuclear powers. It's funny that the Pakistanis have nominated President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing peace between them. And yes, that's been an ugly ongoing battle back and forth between two nuclear powers. Hopefully it won't flare up again, because it's actually really ugly. By the way, I've never seen the number till this week. or this past week. I don't know if the numbers are trustworthy or not, but the number is that Israel has 90 nuclear warheads. We've all known they've had nuclear weapons, but there's the number that's been put forth is because they believe that the Iranians were trying to build either 4 or 10. 4 was the number I heard, but it could have been expanded a little bit. But Israel, already has 90. So and I can tell you, if they think they're going down, that they would launch. Absolutely. Let's see. I like having a conversation like this with you. I'm a progressive Democrat, and you seem to be a conservative Republican. We can have a reasonable conversation without getting heated. Yes, sir. We've always said that on here. More than welcome. And I am a conservative Republican, although I don't always like things Republicans do. Let me clarify. I am a Christian conservative. There are times that I don't like a lot of things Republicans have done, just like I don't like things that Democrats have done. But I do appreciate the comment, and I do appreciate that we can, and I like having those conversations. And as you can see, I'm not hard case to the point where I'm not willing to take in consideration something you've said. In fact, I've said many times you've made great points, and I like those points. I like having those again, because there is so much that we can have right, and there is so much that we can have wrong. Because we're making conjecture off of things where we don't have all the information. And here's my problem is we're trusting the very people that we say to give us the information, we say we don't trust. So when people tell me, hey, Dave, they've got the ball. We got to go. The intelligence said. I said, but you say you can't trust the government to tell you the truth. And they ignore it. It's like, them Iranians, they've been saying it forever. I said, but what do they really have? That's all I'm asking is who and what intelligence can we trust? I tell you, there are people that don't trust our intelligence, what they're sharing with us. I want to hope that our leaders are telling us the truth of this. I'm not saying they're not. What I'm saying is that it is facts. The facts are that the polls always show, I'm not big on polls, but polls on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans have a distrust of the government depending on who's in power. Now, a lot of Republicans have distrust of their own party, but I've known some Democrats who have distrust of their party. And so who's telling the truth? What is the truth? We don't believe we've heard the truth on JFK. We don't believe we've heard the total truth on Martin Luther King Jr. We don't believe we've heard the full truth on Robert Kennedy. We certainly don't feel like we've heard the total truth on Epstein. And you could go on and on and on and on. So why do we fall all over ourselves to say, oh, we got to go? I just like asking the questions, and it does make people mad. I appreciate you saying that, because there are people that they can't handle it. You're right, they get heated, they get mad. I don't take it personal. What bothers me is when we can't have that discussion. I just like to play the other side of a coin. I've been on debate teams before, and they are a blast. Folks, I've been on Christian debate teams, and I've been on workplace classes where we debate issues. And let me tell you, we have debated anything and everything. And it's so much fun to be on the other side. Let me give you 2 examples. One is abortion. I have been on debate teams on both sides of that. And it's fascinating. In a room with people, sometimes they were strangers. Sometimes they were people I really knew. I've been on debate teams to talk about the gun control, whether to have it or not have it. I've been on both sides of that. I've been on biblical debate teams where we debated everything from Noah's Ark to the cross of Calvary. Just because when you actually bring that, what do you think Paul was doing, the Apostle Paul, when he went and met with all these people in Athens and other places? They were having respectful debate. Paul was able to hold his own. They respected that. But they didn't all just say, well, you're right, we're wrong. It's a give and take. And I appreciate you saying that. I love that aspect. We can do that. I thought the Americans already knew what the Ukrainians attacked with these drone forms. It took a ton of oil, refineries, and military production sites that supply the Russian military. There is definitely a lot that is involved with that. Well, they knew that they attacked with them, but the way that they attacked, I'm hearing a little bit different things. And when I cover this a little bit in this week, I'm going to do it during the MAGA reports that I have. I want to kind of cover it in a couple, 3 shows. First of all, we heard these drones were in these, as they called them, little houses, structures that the roofs would open up. They showed pictures of it where these drones would open up, they start up, fly up, and take off. We heard that. Now we're hearing that some of these drones were assembled in Russia. Vastly different story. Now, I never heard that. Maybe they did. I didn't hear that. So when you talk about that means you've infiltrated. You got people in the country. Well, we pretty much knew that. Now, some of the trucks were driven by Russians who didn't even know what they were carrying. But they actually set up a place right beside the Russian secret police or whatever. And so that was a place that they put some of these together. I thought that was just a place where they did the logistics. Apparently, they were building these things. So who's to say in some storefront in small town America or somewhere, there's not some odd looking name on the front of a door, and you say, what's that? What's some kind of business? In the back room, we got Iranians putting together drones. Could it happen? It could. Parts could be carried in bits and pieces across the border and assembled in America. So we did know that they had drones, and the Russians are ahead of the Ukrainians with the help of the Iranians, which this is another reason why Russia's mad. The Iranians, and I hope we knocked out some of those drone sites, they've been making their drones for Russia to fly into Ukraine, and I would suspect they're probably the ones that came up with the fiber optic drones, which they stay controlled so they can't be jammed. They have a distance of up to 9 miles, I think it is, or 9 kilometers. With these fiber optics, they stay connected, so the jamming frequencies and all that don't work, and they can use small 2- and 3-man teams to go in and make access in areas very covertly and secretly. So there's that. Dave, my question is, can you blame Zelensky for the corruption and the fraud in his government because he's still dealing with the previous regime, no matter how many heads he cut off? Well, there's no doubt that that was a corrupt government and has been for a long time. What I can blame him for is being corrupt himself. I get it. Maybe in that, I know how it is across, but they were supposed to be this fairly, westernized type of country. It's not that people don't have a full understanding of exactly kind of how that country is. Wonderful people, but it's a different mentality and set up different. He has refused to hold elections. He has set those aside. And in fact, we always said what happened here, that either Biden would do it. Now they're saying that President Trump will do it. They'll just stay in power, hence the king thing, the dictator. Well, he's doing that. I mean, he refused to have elections and used the excuse of war. So in that way, I mean, I can fault him for that. Absolutely. Another one seems to pop up because let's not forget the previous presidential regime was puppet for Putin. So yeah, there's different ones will align with different people. Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why we've spread the cash around the world, which people get mad about that. But what they do is they funnel weapons, cash, all kinds of stuff, food, to get agreements with these type of people and get them to side with the Americans to a degree against the Russians or Chinese or whoever. And they're doing the same thing. Dave, I'm thinking that propaganda for the Russian news media to make it seem like the Ukrainians are building this already inside Russia is probably not the truth. And again, I will say this. I don't have a clue. He bragged about it. Zelensky bragged about it. But is it true? See, that's my problem. Who's telling the truth? I want to hope that our president is telling the truth. I do. I'm not saying he's not. What I'm saying is it's this whole thing the pedal hit the floor at the G7. I want to know why. We were just clicking along. There's still room, to give peace a chance. We're going to sit and sing, songs and smoke a stogie, and we're going to make a deal. I feel really good about it. To while he's at the G7, he gets up and runs out like he just got the call that his mother went to emergency surgery. And I've had those calls, so I know what that feels like. That he gets back to what he calls the war room, and he don't trust the phones at the G7, and he wants to get back and find out what's going on. I mean, they called him. He jumped up and ran out. What the heck? But they still say they didn't have a bomb. Why the rush? Why? I just want to know. They're not gonna call me up and say, "Hey, Dave, we got that answer for you." But that's the question I have, and I think it's a fair question. Okay, the strike's over. That's done with. But I still got questions about that. What was the urgency? Why was it exactly at that moment that we had to do it? I just have that question. And I don't know that I'll get any kind of answer, but I still would like somebody to answer that question for me. Because I think it's a fair question. All we can do is take all the evidence we have and start piecing it together. We can listen to every media source we can get our hands on. We evaluate how people have been truthful or not been truthful in the past. And through multiple examples, we start piecing together a pretty good story. And some of it's going to look really good. Some of it may not. And we're just going to have, that's going to be questions about that. Especially if this escalates. Especially if it escalates. Listen, I've always been a supporter of Israel. But I'm not always a supporter of the government of Israel, because sometimes that government, I've not liked things they've done. Just like I've not liked things that Lebanon's done or Syria's done or whatever. Certainly. I think it's fair to call into question some things. And another thing we haven't heard anything about, and I get why they did it. I get that. And going after Hamas, but what the heck is going to happen in Gaza? That's third in line right now to the main lead story, which is Iran and Israel. Russia, Ukraine's behind that to a degree. And where is this whole humanitarian crisis of Palestine? Or I know it's not officially called that, but Gaza. Where are these people going to live? The people that are now, most of them homeless, they say there's a starvation issue that's occurring. And what's going on with that? I mean, I'm not saying there's not things happening, but the news is almost ignoring it right now because of what's happening. Anyway, I always like to say when a big story hits, and this is big, pay attention to the little pieces or the other pieces, what they're not talking about. And look for little odd things that pop up and you go, interesting. Like at 5 o'clock on a Friday, they always release some kind of information, or on a Saturday now. You used to think Monday, you think Monday would be a day Monday, Tuesday, we get in action. No, they just stroll through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. Then long about Friday or Saturday, boy, that's when we go into action in this country anymore. For truth. And we've got a holiday coming up, July 4th, that, yes, we still celebrate here. And there'll be protests. What things might happen around that while the country is celebrating freedom and celebrating, with their families and cookouts and funs and games and festivals and all that. I would watch what happens. I don't trust the mainstream media, to be honest, anymore either. Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, because, amen. I'll just give you, I'll amen you from the back row. Amen. They're more about their sponsors and they care about clicks than facts. Completely agree with everything you just said. And thank you for throwing them all in there. And Fox is no better than CNN or MSNBC. They do the same crap. And they craft their stories to fit the narrative they want to. I've heard people talk about this very weekend from conservative circles. Sick of them. And so a lot of people are switching over to other ones. Newsmax being one of them. David Moody's a perfect example for the Americans how we're hypocritical about this during the Civil War. We suspended elections. Truth. To elect presidents during this time because the country was split apart into the Confederate States and the North. Yes. And let me tell you, I will speak on that. I love history. And here I'm in the South, and there are things about that war that, I have studied it from all sides and continue to do so. I will the rest of my life. But there were a lot of people in the South that were really frustrated with the Richmond government. And a lot of states were upset with Richmond as well. And so I'm going to give you 2 or 3 things here real quick. And you sound like you really study and know this. First of all, there were soldiers that refused to go across the Potomac when Lee took his, as he said, he was trying to end the war. But when he crossed the Potomac, there were soldiers that threw their weapons down and said, "No, sir, I'm here defending the Confederate States of America. I'm not invading the North. I want to get these people out of here. I'm not going to invade their home. They can lock me up. They can shoot me. I don't care. I refuse to go." That was quite prevalent. There was a lot of soldiers that did that. And they saw they saw it as hypocrisy. Number 2 is the states felt like they were forced into giving up troops to the quote unquote Confederate, that their version of the federal government. They were forced to give over their best troops instead of being there for the defense of their state. The governor of Georgia was very upset about this. Was bitterly upset. So there was that. And then, yes, elections. And so you put all these things together and people said, well, what we're becoming is exactly what we're fighting against. It's the same thing. What are we going to have if we do win? So there were huge pockets in the South of people that either A, wanted the Union to stay together, 2, they became disillusioned with what they seen as politics is the same kind of crap, and they couldn't stand Jefferson Davis because they saw him as being a dictator, and there were people that even in the South today that don't care for him. He did go to jail for 2 years, and he wrote a nice book. I like to finish that book one day. But they saw that, and they were frustrated by it. They said, we're becoming what we thought we were fighting against, which was states' rights. They said, where's the states' rights in this? They said, well, for the common good, we got to bring, these troops have got to come help defend over here. Other states need them. We need them in Virginia. We need them in Tennessee. We need them in Mississippi. And so you do get that. So that's another really good point that I like. I'm like you, I like Israel, but I don't trust that right-wing despotic government. I don't think Netanyahu is really a president. I feel like he's a dictator portraying himself as a president. There's a lot of people that don't like Netanyahu. Truth. And I don't think we're going to ever have guys like Walter Cronkite, Tom Brokaw, and Errol Martin. Truth. It's a different. Where you will get that is in programs like this. Not that it's me, but there are people that have popped up with their own programs, and they are bringing it every single day, and they're getting bigger. And people are coming to programs like this every day because they feel like they can at least ask the questions or vent or say something, and they don't care for any of the media, any of it, and they go to podcasters who are very in touch with sources and stuff, and they are asking, they're saying, listen, this is crap. And they challenge both sides. I really believe that's why Joe Rogan has gotten so big. He has some funny stuff and all that. But you know why? He's willing to call them out. It don't matter what side they're on. And I think right now a lot of Americans want that. They just listen. I don't care for party. Call them out. Call them on the carpet. When they're wrong, they're wrong. I think that's one of the reasons. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Well, there was a high desertion rate on both sides. Yes, let's be honest. I think the perception of the Civil War that the South was victims is all to blame because of the lost cause narrative. Truth. There's a lot about that. There's a lot of intel about that war that's a lot of teaching about that war that's wrong. And we know this. And yes, the main reason for the war, and again, we don't need slavery, but the main reason for the war was not that. We know that it came down to power and money. Power and money. That's usually what it goes back to, right? Power and money. But you got to have a cause. Was the cause a good cause? Sure. Absolutely. But that's what keeps people, when you got a cause, you rally to the flag. When your sons are dying by the droves, it's people get really disillusioned with war very quickly. And you have to have a cause. You know, American soldiers went to Ukraine and fought for what they thought was the cause and became disillusioned very quickly and pulled back and said, this is not what I thought I was fighting for. There's something weird going on here. In some numbers, I've read their stories. So, absolutely. Blame the lost cause narrative on that. They portrayed it as states' right, but they leave out the fact that it was the states' rights to own slaves and expand. Well, truth, they're not hiding that at all. The real problem was Western expansion. There was a balance of power in Congress, and through these open territories, the territorial areas like Oklahoma and others, what would they become? And we know this, a whole other discussion, but very quickly, would they be states, slave states or free? And the big decision that they won, obviously, was that they could take their property, and I hate to say it in that way, but that's absolutely how that was labeled. They could take all their property, including what they determined property to be as slaves, as they went westward for those rich open lands out there that they could grow crops. And once that kind of got put through, and then you would have a unbalance of power in Congress, because it was on many fronts. It's on the congressional level. It's on the future states, what they were going to become. It was about money. It was about who would own the balance of power. It was about the cause. I mean, it has so many aspects to it. Yes, I'm not one of those that said slavery didn't have anything to do with it, because certainly it did. Certainly it did. But there was a lot of bad stuff that was going on, bad mojo in the financial parts of it. Who was getting rich off the cotton, who was not. And I mean, here you have two states that are bitterly fighting. I mean, two nations bitterly fighting it out, but yet they're making cotton deals. Both sides are corrupt in this case. I mean, they're making cotton deals. It would be like Russia and Ukraine having a station over there where they're selling, grain or whatever to the Russians. That's exactly what was happening. And it's an ugly anti-Semitic point. But in 1863, I think it was, when General Grant in Tennessee was mad about what he saw going on, and he ordered the removal of these Jewish traders and all their families. Basically, ended up infamous order number 11. He ordered the removal of all Jews from his field of power that he controlled. Some of those Jewish people were never seen again. It's like the trains moving in Germany. And the rabbis called up and went to see Abraham Lincoln, President Lincoln, and said, "What's your God doing down here?" And he ordered him to cease and desist immediately. But some of those Jewish people were never seen again. They never came back. Did they just stay somewhere? Were they? There's a lot that history is not able to give us, but it was a black eye on the president at that time. It didn't seem to hurt him in the long run. And in fact, when General Grant became president, he had a lot of Jewish people in his administration. So no lasting effect, but it's a horrible stain. It's absolutely a horrible stain in history in America. But there's a lot of that, you know. Love the discussion, man. I really, really do. Love the discussion. Let me get down here. I missed a couple. They portray their generals as saints. They don't kill or do anything bad. They betray the North as butchers. Well, there was a lot of that on both sides. There was really bad treatment in prisons on both sides. Some would say the South didn't have the means to take care of the prisoners because they could not take care of themselves, and that the North purposely punished the soldiers. You'll get bitter arguments about that, and I get it from history and reading. My own ancestor was in Elmira. They called Elmira in New York, and 1 out of 4 died there. They overfilled it. They gave them bad food. There was a sewage problem. It flooded. It was a bad deal. But mine survived and walked home. It took him a while to get home. In fact, when he got home, his own mother didn't recognize him, according to family history. There's a lot I could go in with that, and we want to talk history on here more. But you could look into these stockades and prisons, and certainly there was some leaders that were butchers on both sides. Yeah, sure. I will give you an example, though. I don't know if you've ever read the Jeff Shahara books, which his dad wrote the first one, Gettysburg, and then he wrote, oh my goodness, the second one I can't remember, but then Last Full Measure. It was never made into a movie. But when he was writing that book and he was doing his research, and he always liked to elevate and show character studies of certain people, one of the people that he wanted to highlight was Phil Sheridan on the Union side. And he said, I just found out I didn't like that guy. I didn't like nothing about him. He said, I made a lot of people mad. So instead, he continued to go down the road and look at Joshua Chamberlain on the Union side. And on the Southern side, he was looking more at Stonewall Jackson. And he said, I just didn't like Sheridan, Phil Sheridan. Didn't like him. Couldn't stand him when I read more about him and what things he did. So he recognized that there was, and then on the Southern side, there's some generals that were, well, inept, brutal, just no good. No good. It's such the case with any war, such the case with any war. Let's see here. In this narrative, Dave also makes it people believe that the British were going to send troops. Yeah, they weren't going to do it. Again, back then, media was portraying a lot of things too. On both sides, there was absolutely a lot of lies that went on the Union press. But there was also lies that went on the Southern press. And here's the interesting part about that. The faith leaders got involved on both sides. And you can read the sermons. And I preach. I find this interesting. I find it all interesting. And each side felt they had the divine right to that war, that God was on their side. It's really fascinating. If you read the sermons, that they were challenging the people to absolutely go join this military. God is with us. God is on our side. And we're going to win because God is with us. And both sides promoted that. And, that's people of authority. That's dangerous. But that's what happened. I'm not going to say every single one did that, but it's pretty prevalent that both sides felt that they had a divine right in the war and they couldn't lose. Both sides at points probably figured God was angry at them because of how bad it got. The loss of life was staggering. And the loss of life and the starvation and the treatment of civilians. And then you had 12 years of post-war hell in the South. Reconstruction. Horrible. It was a horrible, ugly time in our country. And, we can look back and study it. We can appreciate the stories, the biographies, the battles, and, just look at it. Thank God it's not going on today. And it affected everybody that was in the nation at the time. Even if you were on the left coast, I mean, it still affected them out there. Uh, but certainly more so in, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, da 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 da. Um, there were people that love certain generals and they hate certain generals on both sides. Absolutely both sides. Um, but there were pockets of Union resistance all through the South. Everybody in the South was not pro-Confederacy. In fact, I've done a lot of research, and people in my own family, some of them wanted to stay in the Union, but their kids went and fought. One went and fought one, and one went and fought the other. And such it was at the time. Some just didn't want to be left alone. I don't want to fight your war. I don't want nothing to do with it. Hence a lot of controversy. The draft, sending someone in your place if you had money. But I found court records for my family, and I have a cousin, and I've talked to his granddaughters at one time. They're, I'm sure, deceased by now, but actually were still living as granddaughters. Think about that. They were very elderly. Got a lot of information. But, and then I did, studies throughout records and stuff, including the release from Elmira, and a couple of stories along the way, the journey back. But his dad considered himself a Unionist. He had one son named David, like me. I'm David, or Dave. He fought for the Union, but he got sick, was medically discharged at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and was given back the money for his horse and everything. He was given a disability, David B. Cordell. But his brother Ezekiel fought for the 60th Georgia for 3 years. He spent 10 months in prison. It was a miracle he made it, but he came back. But when he later on, his dad put in a claim in the county here. I've got the records. Because when the soldiers came through, they took a hog, they took a horse, I think, and some grain from them. So he put in a request for payment, and he got it too. And I think he ended up getting, it was either $200 or $250. And he said, "I'm a Unionist. I never wanted Georgia to secede from the Union, and I've been done wrong." And he got his money. And of course, the soldiers in the South late in their life got a pension of $25 a month, which was a lifesaver to a lot of people. The South was in bad shape, and it helped. It took a long time for the South to rebound financially. Some say they're still recovering. In some cases around the South, that's true. Of course, Atlanta's been a boom, and there's a lot of money flowing through the state of Georgia. Absolutely. Let's see here. Because the British and the French and Spanish were never going to give the South any troops. Yeah, that's true. They weren't going to do it. Although I would say they all wanted to make money off the South. Hence the selling of weapons by the British to both sides. I think they prop up Jackson way too much. I think he's overrated in my opinion. He just gets hyped because he died because of a dumb military strategy that Robert E. Lee did. I have a great opinion of Stonewall, although he was a quirky kind of guy. I will say he was a man of faith. And if you go back a little further, and you may have, and look at all these leaders where they were way before the war. And if you go back and follow his story, and Robert E. Lee's, and many of them to the Mexican-American War, you get a good picture of where they were and where they came from. And some of his tactics were a little odd, but he also had the ability to push men and do things that others couldn't get done. So much like General Forrest, who was not military trained, was absolutely brilliant in some of his maneuvers. Sometimes he did push out too far. He made Lee mad. I mean, you'd have to break down certain battles to fully explore that. But he did have some odd beliefs, like he had walked through the woods with his arms held up. He thought the blood would drain back into his heart or something. He also ran through the woods praying and run into trees. But he did find faith in Mexico. He visited all of them, and he developed a faith. And so, in Gods in General is the second. That was the second book. It portrays that, and I believe he was a man of faith. But he was odd. He was stubborn. He had a temper. Him and Lee, but he was, his right hand. But there were times that he said he could have moved. Certainly, he did some things that he shouldn't have done. But I love to study about him. He's a fantastic study, and there's so much we could say. Again, we're going to have shows about that. But very good. Let's see what else you got here. I'm gonna have to come to a close here in a minute. I think I'm gonna have one more program tonight, but I need to reset. Yeah, I feel that most wars start because of religion. Yeah, it plays a big part. It does. It absolutely does. People star. Well, always use your own gut on things. And if something just doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. Just because they say it doesn't make it so. Uh, I love my country. I absolutely want us to be together, united, the United States of America. We've made some missteps, but I love my country. I have a lot of patriotism. Uh, I would rather us kind of pull some of these things in and not be so out there. I think he's trying to do that. I have concerns. There's fears that I have concerning everything from the economy to war to, the division within our country, the terror aspects in our country, all those things. I definitely am concerned about things that I see, and we pray about it. That's all we can do. And be active in our communities, be active in politics or to vote or whatever. I vote and I also help with elections. And I'll be working a runoff here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, there's things that frustrate me. I think that's the when you really study history, is you lose some of the um, what's the word I'm looking for? You lose some of the shine off of things, And even though I say that, I still have a great love for country and flag and military and all. But at the same time, I know men are failures, men are liars, and they're sinners. And every man has his faults, including me. Absolutely. Let me raise my hand. I'll raise both. This guy has faults, but I try. And so I don't expect perfection out of any leader. What I do expect them is to obey the law, to tell the truth, and to do the best they can. And I would hope that they would pray and seek higher counsel in doing that. But we're going to see failures because men do bad things. I say men and mankind, not just saying men. It's all of us. And I do want to see our country. Uh, I like it when we help people. I do too. But we got things here at home that we've got to get fixed too, and we've got to get this debt under control. I don't want my grandchildren seeing their government collapse because of debt. I don't know how many years I got left, but I got kids and grandkids, and probably soon on the horizon, great grandkids, a few years down the road. I don't want to see them left in this mess if it's all still here. So I try to stay involved. I try to stay educate myself and share with others. It's really a shame. I'll say this, that I'm going to get off here. We'll probably be back. I'm going to try if I'm not too tired. Uh, I I want to see this country with all the benefits that it has be the best that it can be, and we're not being the best that we can be yet. But I think attempts are being made. Uh, And that's some of that's because of division. We're kind of being ripped at our core. The families of America, there's a lot of destruction in the family. People have lost their way. They don't have no faith. They don't have any hope. Suicides are at an all-time high. Drug use all-time high. Uh, we've got the boomers who are dying in masses because that was this huge, mass of people that, and it's our we don't have enough senior places for all of them to stay in. There's so many things happening. Our food supplies, water supplies, you could go on and on and on. No, we're not being the best we can be. We've got to make some improvements in our nation. I want to hope that the president can get some of those things done, but he can't do it alone. Congress is fighting him on some stuff. And no, not everybody agrees on what those things should be. But I do think that I don't know anybody that wants to pay more taxes. If they do, I've never met them. Nobody's signed up and say, hey, could you please tax me more? It's always tax somebody else more. Nobody ever says that for themselves that I've seen. We want to be able to own a home, a car, be able to take trips, be able to live our lives with as little government intrusion as possible. We want good schools for our kids. We want good hospitals, good health care, affordable health care if we can get it. We want to make a decent wage. All these things. Everybody wants that. But there are people here who are just taking from the system. But good, honest Americans, they want to see this country succeed and just get better and explode in greatness that it's never seen before, because that would be good for all of us. And I do believe it's the people praying for this country in the masses across the country that's kept us from falling any more than we have. We've endured so much crime and so much corruption and so many bad things, but there's so many good people in this country who are trying every day to do all they can to make our country great, including prayer. But not just praying; they're being active. They're signing up to get on school boards. They're running for office. Whatever it is. They're serving in elections. They're trying to find corruption. They're exposing it. They're going to city and council meetings. They contact their senators. They contact their governor, and all the things that they do. And keep doing that. Keep doing that. It's critically important in our nation that we do those things, and that we keep, we keep pressing and demanding our leaders to fulfill their campaign promises. We need a strong military. Absolutely, we have to have that. You don't, you're going to get destroyed. We do need, as much as possible. We've got to stop the government control of everything in our nation, where you just feel choked like you can't do anything. We need regulations, but the kind of regulations that are fair and allow for business to thrive. I mean, there are some idiots out there that do whatever, so you have to have rules. But some rules just clamp down business and you can't get anything done. We've got to get this debt off of us, which is affecting every one of us. And it's not going to happen in my lifetime. 37 trillion, whatever it is, that's not going to weigh in my lifetime. And that's sad. It's truly sad. Anyway, there's a lot that could be said. Great discussion tonight, Brother Anthony. Thank you for coming in here. Always come back. I didn't get into too many news stories, but we covered a lot of ground, and I think that was good. And we'll maybe see you soon. If not, we'll see you in the morning. I do have 2 early shows. Don't forget the Cornbread Man Morning Show on Podbean goes live around 5. Sometimes can be as late as 5:15. If it's out there, I'll be on. I just sometimes depends on what's going on in the mornings, getting everything set up. I try to go live at 5 on Podbean. Then it will hit all the MP3 sites. As soon as I set a couple things in there, it goes out to about 10 or 12 different MP3 sites. We have many shorts that go up. I'll be cutting those tonight. That's why I don't know if I'll be back on. I intend to do 2 shows, but I definitely am going to look for the MAGA Minute, look for the Bible devotion and conservative quotes in history are mainstays. I love those. Me and Rob eventually going to try. I've still got to get up. If you have a veteran in your family you'd like to honor, we need to get a vet of the week this week up. And a pet, we do our pets. We'll get those up as well. Look for those around Tuesday, Thursday. I promise Uncle Jeb and Bubba are going to, the show's going to happen this week. In fact, I finished up, I believe, all the recording today. There might be a little bit of one left. If it is, I'll cut it tomorrow. But there's a new song. There's all kind of things going on with them. So the puppets, who you see behind me, they're the Jeb and Bubba show will air this week. I promise you. With the fall of my wife, it really put me back a little bit. But we're kicking in gear. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please do that. It's been posted all over. But just email our email, and we'll put you in there. We promise 1 email a week, no more, no more. We're not going to inundate you, and we're not begging for money. We will put in there our links to Patriot Mobile, which you can make the switch and support us. Mammoth Nation, Dubby. I went blank. Forgot one. Podbean. We will put those links in there, but we're just giving you options. Our coffee is going online soon. We've got 5 logos approved. 2 of them are uploaded. We got to finish that up this week. Setting up our Shopify store. All that will happen. We're going to try to tie all these things together over the next week. What else? Oh my goodness! Don't forget our new vent show that's on Wednesday night, Rumble only. I was having some issues, came out, and just let Rob and them handle the show. So we did have the vent, but we didn't drop the other shows. We'll do that this week. If you don't have a Rumble channel, please get one. It's really important. We're part of their creator program, and throughout the month, we have to have now a new requirement: 20 one-time individual, 20 different people, one-time chatting. We've probably got about 70% of that covered already. We'll get it, but if you could help us out, that'd be great. It just helps us. It helps us keep things going. What else? In the newsletter, you're going to see things before others do. We'll try to get that out to you. But there's a QR code floating around out there, too, on the social medias. Most of them, I've got to put it up on more. But we won't share your email, and we will only send one a week. If you want to. You don't have to. Obviously, you don't have to do anything. We are on a new site. It has just started. I wasn't planning on this, like I needed any more work to do, but it was too good to pass up. It's Wimkin. I'm going to show you. Let's see if I can show you I was going to show you the logo, but it's WIMKIN, Wimkin. And they're really good about protecting your freedom of speech. And someone recommended it, and we have joined it. So we'll get more about that up. But that was only joined Saturday night, so it's very new. We do have 2 or 3 videos up, but Wimkin, so that's another option for you to catch us. Very, very soon, you're going to see us live on hopefully one other channel. We'll talk about that later on. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. There's so many things going on that I forgot. Rob's doing better. I did talk to him today. He's been, pretty bad through the seizure. I expect him to be on with me in the morning, 6 a.m. I do go back to work. I took a week off. I'll go back to work, so I'll be at work. Tomorrow night, as Mama said, Miss Elizabeth is back. Look forward to that. What else? The NASCAR show, SFP Racing Hour, will be on Tuesday at 6. That will be flipping back and forth because of the work schedule now. So it's either the sports, one day will be sports, one day will be racing. And they'll flip from week to week. So you get Tuesday will be racing, then the next Tuesday will be sports. Same for Thursday. And we just flip back and forth. That's due to people's work schedules that are co-hosts. On the sports show, James is taking a hiatus. He's got some family stuff he's got to take care of. He will still be considered a part of the show. He'll come back when he can. We will continue the sports show, though. Don't worry. If somebody would like to come along and help with that, let me know. We'll be glad to talk sports. Love sports. So we'll be glad to bring you up on stage. I think that's all I got. I got to cut a couple of things for the morning. If I can get back on. If not, I'll see you in the morning, Podbean side or the video side. Get you a cup of coffee and get going. Pray for the country. We'll be paying attention. Thank you for everybody that's watching tonight. We don't take that lightly. I appreciate all of our friends, creators, Killer Carl, Kim's Coffee Talk, Celtic Blacksmith, the Dialogue Box. Who am I leaving out? Angry Conservative 1981, who dubbed me the Cornbread Man. And now he's called me Pastor Cornbread Man. I like that. Who else? I'm forgetting some. James, Empty Pockets Podcast. And I'm sure there's one or two more. Violent Vixen. It's a funny name, but I love her. Her Moxie. She's on Wimkin and Rumble. We'll be getting her card up as well. What else? Man, there's so much going on. There really is so much going on. Thank you, Anthony, for being in the chat. It's one of our new followers on YouTube. Sorry, I covered my mouth when I was speaking. We don't have a lot of followers there, but we've been picking up here lately. And I don't know, maybe algorithms are changing, and we're starting to see some change in that. We have a big endeavor. We hit 50,000 followers, counting all streams by our birthday, which is 1 year. We have a big, bold plan to be at 150,000 by the end of year 2. We'll see. We're trying. We're fixing to cross over 54,000, or maybe we already are. Maybe we're closing on 55,000. I think it's 55. We're moving towards 55. So we're trying. We'll just keep pressing it, and we'll see what happens and give God the glory. I was going to say something else. I forgot what it was. There's some things we're working on behind the scenes, and we hope to talk about that soon. I've just got some. I'm always thinking I got big plans for the future, and I sure want to get there. And I think it'll be exciting. And I would look for some other exclusive programming like Podbean. We have the morning show. There'll be some exclusive TikTok programming, Clapper for sure, in the near future. It won't be every day, but we will have that. But they'll probably increase a little bit as we go. So I would look for me for sure to be doing that. Maybe others, but we will just stream to them exclusively when we do that. So give us a follow at TikTok, Clapper. There shows, there are places that we want to do some lives from and show them some love too, that we don't go straight live to through this. It's not possible. We'll go live through the app. What else? I think that's it. Have a great night. God bless. Pray for me. So always need prayer. We'll pray for you. If you have prayer requests, send them to the email. I promise you we'll pray for them. If you'd like to make an announcement or whatever, we'll try our best to get it up. We try to do those things. By the way, any ad that we show, we've never asked for a dime. And maybe a point in the future where we do receive money for ads, but those diners and different businesses that we show, we just do that as a public service. Just try to be good people to the community and help people out. It's tough to be a small business person. I know I am a small business person, and I appreciate the people that are giving us a hand up. Shout out to all of you. You're awesome. Pat yourself on the back for being a great American. You deserve it. All right, we're out of here. We'll get some music going, and I got to get some things cut. It is getting late. I drove a lot today. I drove 4 hours. 4 hours. 2 church services, drove 4 hours. This old boy's a little bit tired. It's okay to admit it. I guess you're supposed to get tired when you get 60. Appreciate those that visited the studio, by the way, all family. I thought some neighborhood kids were coming in. I was telling them to get in and shut the door. Then I looked, and it's like, okay, granddaughter, son. I have people that visit sometimes. They'll be coming through. They just want to see what I'm talking about. Usually not this late at night, though. Kind of throw me off a little bit. All right, take care. God bless.